Welcome to Cosmo's Quilt Bag. We have our first guest host this week to walk us through a lesbian revolt at a pizza restaurant in Brazil. One of my besties, Bryan Lee.
Hi there, my name is Brian. I'm Cosmo's friend, and I'm very excited to tell you guys about something that happened a long time ago in Brazil. And because of this historic event, a lot of things were able to happen. And I'm very excited to be able to share that with you all.
After a militantly masculine in the 1960s, queer activism was finally able to gain traction in the Brazil of the 1970s, with groups like Somos, Grupo de Afirmação Homossexual, which was the first queer group formed in Brazil that was primarily focused on gay men topics, but once women started to join, they created a subgroup within Somos to solely focus on lesbian and women's rights. Back then, only gay interest magazine circulating around was O Lampião da Esquina, so homosexuals were no longer completely invisible, but that was only in certain places. Because there was so much machismo happening within the group Somos, there was a division with the subgroup formed by the queer women. So in 1981, the subgroup started being called Grupo Ação Lésbica Feminista, known as GALF for short. The GALF members of São Paulo could be found at the Ferro's bar. During the day, Ferro was a friendly pizzeria. However, at night, this was a very popular bar with the lesbians. With so many lesbians congregating in one place, it made a lot of sense to use the opportunity to spread the information to the community. GALF used the bar as a home base to distribute feminist, informational journal, and lesbian manifesto called Xana com Xana.
One funny thing about the name Xana com Xana is it is because it translates to pussy on pussy, which you may think about, well, that's pretty gross, or that's pretty rude, or that's very offensive. But in my opinion, I think it was meant to be provocative in a way that would bring people's attention. And Xana con Xana had nothing to do with porn or things that children should never have access to, which obviously was not intended for children, but it actually was intended to educate women on their rights, talk about women's health, feminism, and a lot of other queer culture subjects. So it was a very important tool that they wanted to share with everybody. So when that happened at Ferro's bar, everybody was very frustrated because the lesbians were the majority of the clientele that they had.
The bar's owner caught wind, and not only did he prohibit the distribution of Xana com Xana, but he also actively worked with the police to ensure that anyone caught with it would be banned from the premises. On August 19, 1983, members of Grupo Ação Lésbica Feminista, joined by the politicians and members of the press they had invited, walked back into the bar. This time, not at night as they had usually been forced to, but during the day, in full view of the heterosexual pizzeria patrons, and they start reading Xana com Xana out loud. Roseli Roth was the pioneer and head in charge of this historic movement to take back what was removed from them. We basically keep this bar in business. We deserve to spread our word and awareness, says Roseli.
Another important fact that happened that night was that someone ran to the guard that was not letting people in during the night of the protest, and he grabbed his hat and threw inside Ferro's bar, and because of that, everybody was able to just push in and walk in and do the protest together. And that's a really important fact because I feel like if that didn't happen, maybe the series of events wouldn't happen the way it did, and possibly wouldn't have been successful as it was.
Much like the Stonewall for the United States, this was the first time much of the clientele had ever seen queer people out in the open. While many were afraid of being identified and punished, the energy inside was electric. Lesbians of all backgrounds occupied the bar and forced the world to see them. Positive queer representation in the media was framed as a win. Homosexuality was removed from the list of diseases in 1985. And in 1989, just 6 years later, after the lesbians at the Ferro bar made themselves known, two Brazilian states, Mato Grosso and Sergipe, signed laws banning discrimination based on sexual orientation. And because of this wonderful act of queer defiance, August 19th became the Lesbian Pride Day, which later on the 29th of August 1996, the first lesbian seminar occurred, bringing queer women from all over the country together and share their stories, awareness, and of course, culture and a lot of knowledge. And because of this historic event, Brazil marked the 29th of August as the Day of Lesbian Visibility.
And the reason this subject is important to me is because from that day we were able to have holidays, we were able to celebrate other groups of queer people, and that was pretty significant in Brazil, especially because we are the country that kills the most queer people. I think it was a very historic movement to just make your own subgroup, and because of that you want to share the world to everybody, and you protest and you fight and you conquer. And I think that's why we are here today resharing these stories, because of people like them we are able to be here today telling these stories and the things that we are able to conquer. So hopefully you guys enjoyed as much as I did to tell you guys about it, and hopefully you feel a little bit more knowledgeable and interested to learn about other countries' stories. And you know, it's never too much to learn. So until next time.